Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Alexis Batulis with Columbus, and today we have a special presentation for you on 5 time-saving Microsoft Dynamics GP tips and tricks. We started the call by muting everyone, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box on the upper right-hand side of the screen to ask any questions that may come up during our session. At the end, we'll have time for a Q&A with our presenter. Finally, we are recording the session and we'll be sending a link to all attendees within 24 hours of this live webcast. Now I'm excited to introduce your presenter today, Rigo Meza. Rigo is a senior GP implementation consultant here at Columbus. Rigo has over 20 years of experience implementing and managing Dynamics GP software and engaging customers in business process reviews. He's here today to show you tools to unlock the full potential of GP and discuss how a business process review can uncover additional time-saving features. So without further ado, Rigo, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Alexis. I want to welcome everybody here to the Dynamics GP time-saving tips and tricks. Just as an intro, these are tips that we have uncovered through our business process reviews. And every time that we go out and do a process review for a customer, there's always things that clients always tell us that that they are things that they don't utilize, that they may have and they weren't aware of it. And so as we get through our business process review, we end up uncovering some of these tips that clients definitely are able to use afterwards. So let's go ahead and get started here.
All right. I'm not seeing the presentation here, Rigo. Could you put show screen?
Show my screen.
There we go.
Here we go. Thank you. So these are the 5 time-saving tips and tricks that we have uncovered here. So here's our agenda for today. We'll go through 3 journal entry enhancements as one group. We'll go through the Excel paste journal entry and how to utilize Excel and GP. We'll also go through a user ID assigned to entry option that you can see of which user posted an entry. And then also we'll get to a reverse historical year. How do I reverse a historical year if there was a mistake that was made? And then we'll move on to export import workflows. Workflows is something new within GP over the last few upgrades that people may or may not be able to take advantage, the clients have not been able to take advantage of, that we can kind of now expand on this feature. We'll also get into write-off process review, something that has been available with GP for a long time, since the initial GP system, that again, clients haven't really been able to utilize 100%, but it's a nice feature, and they've expanded that throughout the upgrades. And then we'll move on to the Excel refreshable reports. Again, something that has been available over the last few upgrades, but again, clients haven't been able to take full advantage of it. So we'll get to show a couple of different ways you could take advantage of these. And then last but not least is the all-in-one views within sales, purchasing, and inventory. I won't be able to show all of these, but the concept we'll get to on the sales side will be similar to the purchasing and inventory, which we can get to as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, journal entry enhancements. So the first one that we have here is the copy and paste to GL. With this feature here, users have the ability to now quickly copy data from an Excel file and paste it into a journal entry. Basically, you will highlight the Excel cells within Excel and then choose copy and paste them right into your journal entry window. The application will validate data that is being pasted into the general ledger. If there are any errors, it'll generate a report indicating, missing account or account does not exist, or just for a report that will enable you to quickly identify the error and then fix it and then paste it again. At the bottom of the screen there, you'll see the Excel format that we need. Column A, distribution reference. Column B, the account. Column C, debit. Column D, credit. And all you do is just copy the actual data itself. You don't copy the headers. Let's go ahead and take a look at it and see how it works in GP. Let me go ahead and switch over to GP. So under financial, and I'm navigating down in my navigation pane at the bottom, under the financial group, we'll go into transactions box and click on general. In the general entry screen, what we do here is we fill in the top information. Copy paste as a batch ID. You could name it anything you want. And then we'll add this batch into our GP window. And then as we navigate, as we tap through these fields here, we enter a reference ID, reference description, and then we tab into our account number. So our focus is in the account number. And then we switch over to Excel, and I have a entry already here created here where we can then just take the row 2, row 3, and copy, right click on it. We can copy, and all I'm doing is just copying the data itself. I'm not copying the headers. Once I select copy, I can then go back to my journal entry screen, click on the account section, and then paste. And then that will then go through and paste the information. That's as easy as it can get. And you can then certainly copy 100 rows, 1,000 rows, highlight the rows, and then copy and paste. Okay. This feature was introduced in GP 2013 release 2. So anything prior, you would have to go through an upgrade in order to get this function. The next function here that we have is the user assigned journal entry. And this entry basically just identifies who the user posted it. In previous versions of GP, you would have to create a SQL, a view, a smart list, or a custom report to identify who the user posted, who the user was that posted the entry. And the new user posted field that is being accessed is from a technical perspective. For those of you that are familiar with the SQL database, is the US WHPSTD column in the GL 20,000 table for the current year transactions, and the GL 30,000 for the historical year transactions, and that's where that information is coming from. And some of these, this new field is available in the journal entry inquiry window, as well as the transaction entry zoom window. So those are the two windows that you can use this information. So no longer need to do a smart list report. So that's this feature here is available on the latest release of GP 2018.2, which is the October 2019 release. Okay. Our next feature here is the reverse historical year. Now this is a feature where if you've done your year-end close and you happen to notice a mistake, or you happen to notice that a balance sheet type of an account was set up as a P&L, or a P&L account was set up as a balance sheet, and you want to correct it, you can actually go through and reverse that historical year end and fix those posting types, and then reverse and then go ahead and close your year again. This window here will warn users to create a backup prior to performing the reversal, so that you can then make sure that you have a backup. It will also verify that users are logged out of GP prior to starting the process. So everybody would have to be out of GP in order to get this done. If you're not maintaining history within the GL setups, this reverse historical year button will be disabled, and you will not be able to do this since there is no history to keep track of. Let's go ahead and navigate to this window with GP. So under GP, we go to your financial navigation pane, and then under the routines checkbox, you'll see a year-end closing option. And under the year-end closing, you'll see the reverse historical year. You'll see the year 2024. In my case, is 2024, which is the year that is open. And when you click on reverse historical year, then the system will then identify here the year that will become open. So in this case, 2023 was the last year that was closed. So you would only be able to open the last year that was closed. And once all criteria has been met, no users are in GP, and you're maintaining history, then you can go ahead and click on process, and that will then open up your 2023 date. So again, situations where you might need this process run is if a posting account was set up incorrectly, you can then go back, reverse the historical year, fix the posting account, reset that up to a P&L if it was a balance sheet, or a balance sheet if it was a P&L. And once you've made those changes, then you can go back and close your year. Things where this would not be helpful in is if you needed to post an entry to a closed year, GP allows you to post a journal entry to the last closed year. So in my case, I can still post to 2023 without having to reverse a historical year. And GP will then update the proper accounts, retain earnings, beginning balance, if it was a balance sheet, and you wouldn't need to run this process for that. This is more in terms of, you find an error, a posting error, and you want to go ahead and fix it. Okay, let's go. So that was the historical, and again, feature that was added in GP 2013 release 2. Now let's go ahead and move on to the workflow enhancements. Workflow enhancements here in version 2018.2, the October release. Now it's been available since I believe 2013, and it's kind of gone through some enhancements throughout the different versions. With version 2018.2, which is the October 2019 release, they've added a feature to allow the export/import of these workflows. When the workflow exported out, then imported into another company, it will import all of the setup of the workflow type, including the steps and conditions. The one thing that it will not transfer in is the approvers. Since each company might have different approvers, that's the one thing that will not be transferred over, going into a different company. Let's take a look at the navigation of that tool. So within GP, within the navigation pane, you go down to administration. This is an administrative setup or process. So you would need to have access to the administration as an administrator. So under Administration tab, we collapse under the Setup box, we collapse the System, and we get into the Company section. Because it is per company, we scroll down to, we'll see Workflow, and under Workflow, we'll click on Workflow Maintenance. So under Workflow Maintenance, we can see I have here two workflows, one for a 1099 verify, one for a batch approval. I can click on one, and I can then click on the Export Import button across the top, and I can then choose to export. When I choose to export, I can, the default would be the workflow name that I originally identified it with, but if I want, I can go ahead and change this into a different if I want to, or just leave it as is, and then select a file path. Click on the yellow folder, and then I can then save it to a shared location where I can then import it back into another company. So there's a yellow folder here on the side, and I can save it. Batch approval, import, export, and then say the workflow name is the same as what original name was. And then, so this saves me time if I got multiple companies, or I got a different instance, or if I have a test server and I'm trying these approvers, these workflows out in a test environment, and then once I got it configured, I can then go ahead and export it out and then import it into my live environment. So this kind of gives you a sense of, trying things out first in a test and then bringing them over to a live production server. Or if I got multiple companies and I want to create one in one company and then have it imported into a second company. And again, the approvers is the one aspect of this that it does not copy. So you'll see that you'll have to then create or reconfigure the approvers portion of it. So that's the import-export workflow. Okay, let's get to a receivables review. The write-off process in GP. Now, this is one that has been, part of GP, since the beginning. And throughout the upgrades, they've kind of made some improvements to this process. So when a customer overpays or underpays, you can use the write-off documents feature to create a credit memo or a debit memo that will be applied to a document that you're writing off. The posting accounts that this write-off defaults first is from the customer maintenance window, and second, if those are empty, then they go over to the company posting settings within the company setup configuration. If the posting account that is listed in the write-off field is blank, the system looks to that posting account setup. Okay. One of the enhancements to this is on the customer account maintenance. They've added a overpayment write-off GL account. So in previous versions, it was just a write-off account. Now with this new version of GP, they added an overpayment write-off. So now you have two, that one for underpayments and one for overpayments as well. Let's go ahead and navigate to this window and see the different options that we have. So under the navigation pane, we'll go to Sales. And under the Routines checkbox, we'll get to write-off documents. On this window here, we have write-off type. So we can either write off underpayments or overpayments. So we have two options here. Create one write-off per customer. So that means that if one customer has multiple transactions that they underpaid, you can then combine them both into one. or you can do a one per document. So each document will then create a credit or a debit memo for each one. And then you have your customer ranges. So under customer range, you can then range your customers by ID, name, class ID, or type. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the write-off limit, where you can then type in a limit of your write-off. So if I indicate $10 write-off limit, I can indicate a cutoff date for the transactions. And then I can also preview to see what my criteria is going to bring back. So I can preview it before I hit process. And once I hit preview, I can see the different customers, the customer balances, and the write-off amounts that it will process. So in this case, these are blue underlines, which means that in GP, everything that is blue underlined is a hyperlink. So I can actually zoom in on a customer ID. If I click on customer ID, it'll bring me into the customer maintenance window, where I can see additional information for this particular customer. If I click on customer balance, then it'll take me to the customer payment summary inquiry window, where I can see a summary of their open balance information. All right, in this case, the customer has 181 in days overdue, 14,978.34, plus additional inquiry information. If I click on the write-off amount, I can then see the specific document that was underpaid. In my situation here, that was underpaid. So this transaction here, the sales transaction, where the document amount, it was underpaid by 10 cents. So it gives me a write-off amount of 10 cents. If I change this to $20, then I can, again, click preview again, and then now my criteria changes, and I'm able to see more transactions here. Once I am comfortable with my criteria and the ranges and the options that this window has, I can then just click on process, and then the system will then go through and create the credit memos or the debit memos in case of an overpayment. Okay. So that's the write-off process in GP. The Excel refreshable reports. This is something, again, one of these things that we definitely uncovered, during our business process reviews, that a lot of clients really don't utilize as much as we feel that they should, because this is something that's very powerful within GP. The integration between GP and Excel, or in that case, just Microsoft Office, and how it intertwines between each other. So a refreshable report, what is it? And it's an Excel file that automatically updates data when GP changes its data. So if there's a new account or a new transaction gets posted, these reports automatically, with a click of a button, refreshes that data live. There are many reports that are standard within GP, and you can modify these reports with different options. And it's just a matter of just a click here, a click there. And a lot of clients know how to use Excel, or they know enough about Excel, and a lot of times they're exporting data from a smart list or from another source, and now that data in Excel becomes a standard data set. And so when you need to refresh it, you have to go through that process all over again. Is exporting data every single time and then having to manipulate that data once more. With the refreshable Excel reports, you don't have to re-export data. It automatically is set, and you can then just go and click a refresh. You can click a refresh button, and then the data will automatically refresh. right? So this window, this reporting tool setup window, has different options, but the one we're going to focus on today is the Excel reports. And there's a system level section where you can then indicate where you want these reports to be stored. And in this case here, we're looking at NetShare, and you indicate a directory for where you want that data to be stored. And then at the bottom of this window, you'll see that you have the options to deploy reports and what has not been deployed. So if you have several companies, you can deploy it to one company and leave the other ones not deployed, or you can deploy all the companies, and then the system will identify which companies have not been deployed and which companies have been deployed. And then at the bottom there, you'll hit the deploy reports button, and then that will then create your refreshable Excel reports. So again, feature was introduced in GP 2013. Let's go ahead and see how that looks. So within my navigation pane, I'll go to the administration section. Again, the setup and configuration is an administrative task, so you'll need high-level access in order to get to these sections here. So under the system section, we'll scroll down and we'll get to reporting tool setup. And like I said, within this reporting tool setup, there's several different other options as well. Reporting services, management reporter, Power BI, and those. But today we're gonna just kind of focus on the Excel reports. So we click on the Excel reports, and our location we have not implemented, which means that you haven't deployed reports yet. Network share or SharePoint. So you can actually then put these out into a SharePoint website as well. And then the reports dictionary location, if you chose network share, then you can then browse out to a folder where these will be stored on you normally would want to store them on a shared location so that multiple people have access to it. You can also do a user level reports dictionary as well, where it is not just a shared location, but it's somebody's home directory, where you can then use %sign to indicate a home directory. And then at the bottom, it tells you, whether it's been deployed or not, and for how many companies. And then down at the bottom, where you click on deploy reports, and that will then initiate all of the reports. So now where do I find these reports? Well, let's go ahead and close this window here. And let's say we go to a financial section. And then within the financial section, on the top right of the navigation pane, as we scroll down, we'll see the Excel reports. So we'll click on Excel reports, and then that will then initialize the list of the reports that are available. So in this case here, we can then certainly double click on one of these. There's two different reports. One is a data connection report that pulls the report out with just it's blank, and then you just kind of go through and click on refresh, or you can click on reports. Between these two, there's not a real difference between those two, other than it's pulling data right away or it's waiting for you to click an action. So what we'll do is we'll click on the one that indicates reports. Two accounts. So it's listed by the company ID that you initialize this with. So in my case, the Fabricam company is denoted with a TWO, and then the name of the report. So in this case, it's TWO accounts default. So I'll double click on it, and then that will then initialize my Excel, and then that will open up in Excel. Here we go. So there's my accounts list. So this would be a refreshable report where I can then go to my data tab in Excel, hit refresh, and then that will then pull up, the new information. So in my case, if I was to go in and create an account, under cards, if I create an account, and I just for purposes of this, just create a 000 account. Let's say I call it cash, and then it's cash, hit save. When I go back to my Excel, I can then hit refresh, and then my new account is automatically listed. Okay. Let's go into Excel reports. If I wanted to view transactional information, I can then take the Excel reports that I have. So if I wanted to do current financial information, I can then just double click on it. The report pulls up in Excel with all of my journal entries here. From this point, it's in Excel. I can then create, insert a pivot table if I want, hit OK. And then now I can create my pivot table with my account number, debits and credits. They're summarized. And then I can save this. And then every single time that I need to update this, I'll just go to my account transactions tab at the bottom, go to my data tab, hit refresh, pulls in the new information, go back to my pivot table, and it should be updated automatically. So I can then take that Excel refreshable report that I don't have to continuously export data back and forth between GP, SmartList, or any other tool. I can then just use Excel and create pivot tables. I can then create links from one sheet to another, and then have my data set where it saves me time having to go through and export data every single time. And the data is stored here. If I just want to, within this table set, if I just want to restrict my data, I can certainly click on the top headers on the little drop downs, and I can certainly just bring in information that I'm looking for, if this is all I'm looking for. Alternatively, within your pivot table, as we all know, we can certainly create filters. And if all I'm looking for is my general journals only, I can certainly restrict those in my pivot table as well. So there's just a lot of functionality within these, and these are all accessible within Dynamics GP. So again, I don't have to go out and look for it. I can then just go within GP. I'm already logged into GP, get into my navigation pane, click on my Excel reports, and then those reports will be listed where I can go through and browse and click on all my reports. Okay, so that's the Excel refreshable reports that we have here. And then here's this, again, same thing with the Excel, just kind of giving you a visual there for the Excel. Distribution enhancements. Okay, so let's take a look at the last of our features here. So the all-in-one views, this was again something that was introduced back in GP 2015, and they've kind of gone through and made enhancements through the latest version, GP 2016, and then even GP 2018 as well. So they first introduced the purchasing, inventory, and now introduced the sales in the latest version. So we can then, this is a way to view all the related sales documents in one view window. You'll be able to select the customer and then view all the documents related to that customer: invoices, quotes, payments, returns, and so forth. You can also add or remove additional document types. So this window, as you know, will have all options available. You can still go in and remove, say, credits and returns. You don't want to see that, you can go ahead and remove those as well. You can also apply filters within each of the different document types. And you can then select posted data information, or you can just select saved information within the filter sections. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see how it looks in GP. So let's look at the sales section. And again, this is what you see. I'm going to show you the sales, but you can see it in the purchasing as well, and inventory also. So I'm just going to concentrate on the sales section. So under sales, within the inquiry, you'll see down at the bottom, sales all in one view. Now, this window can be accessed through the inquiry, or it can also be accessed through the customer card. So if you don't have access to the inquiry side, but you have access to the customer card, you can also access it from there as well. There's a couple of different ways you can access this, but we'll go into the inquiry section, sales all in one view. So the default is all document types for each particular customer. So if I click on the magnifying glass, I can select a customer. And as the window populates, it brings in the information for that particular customer: quotes, orders, invoices, receipts, and credit returns. So if I don't want to see most of these, or if I don't do quotes in GP, I can then go to my options, and I can say I don't need to see quotes. So quotes is always empty, I don't need it. I can click OK, and then I'm only seeing what I chose: orders, invoices, receipts, and returns. So under the options button across the menu, you can then turn on or turn off the columns. And then within each column, you'll have a filter box where you can then choose to filter that particular column with historical invoices, saved information, posted invoices, or you can do a restriction on document number, document status, customer PO number, salesperson. So you can do a couple of other restrictions here as well, with contains, equal to, begins with, is between, not equal to, greater than, or less than. And then you can fill in your information there. Once you hit OK, then that column will be restricted based on your search criteria. Beyond just what you can, beyond just adding or removing columns, filtering it, you can also zoom in. Again, it's blue underlined. These are hyperlinks where you can click on it, and it will then zoom back into your details of that transaction. Right. So you can then see the details. There's also an expansion button or a drop arrow where you can then click on that drop arrow, and then it'll give you additional details for that one particular transaction. So master number, total, and then the black arrows here at the bottom will indicate that there's additional information if you click on it, and then you can kind of get additional information that wasn't there prior. And then down at the bottom here, you'll have your next 5 transactions. So again, it's a limited screen in terms of how much data it can visually see, but down at the bottom, you can go and scroll to the next 5 transactions, the previous 5 transactions. Right, for payments, you can see that there's applied to information. So this particular payment was applied to this particular invoice. Okay, so that is it for the five time-saving tips and tricks of Dynamics GP.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Rigo. So it looks
Absolutely.
like we do have a couple questions here.
Sure.
All right. Now, this is something I'm not sure if we'll have to follow up to answer, but we
Mhm.
had a question on whether the paste will accept zeros and or empty or blank cells.
The paste will, in the debit column, if you you need one of the two, you either need a debit or a credit. But if the credit is blank, it will still accept it because the debit has a number. If both are blank, then it will not accept it.
Okay, great. And on the copy and paste from Excel, what if I have analytical accounting? Can I still use copy and paste?
If you have analytical accounting, unfortunately, the copy and paste doesn't paste uh, additional third-party products, which analytical accounting is a third-party products. So it will just do just a general GP. I mean, it will still paste, but there's no analytical accounting information that will paste. But there is a additional third party from E1 Solutions, Smart Connect, that has a built-in Excel adapter that you can then kind of do similar functionality that I just described, where you have information in Excel with additional data sets like analytical accounting, and then you can click a button to paste that into. It's not a paste function, but it is more of an integration option, but it's within Excel. So again, there's no other application to launch, is within Excel. That's from E1 Solutions Smart Connect.
Great. And on the workflow export import, can I export multiple workflows?
Unfortunately, with that import export, you're not able to select multiple. So it would be one at a time. So you would have to highlight one, do the export, highlight the second one, do a second export, third, and so forth.
Okay, and we have one more question here. Again, if you have any questions, now would be the time to enter that. And we can also follow up with you offline by replying to the email we send. So the last question is, on the Excel refreshable reports, what if I don't have access to GP? Can I still open and refresh the reports?
Yes. So if you don't have access to GP or you're not a user to GP, um, when you click uh, on that navigation pane of Excel reports and the list comes up, there's a path. There's a direct path there that you can that will tell you exactly where they're located. And so you can then go out to browse out through Windows Explorer and get access to that. So again, if they're in a if these reports are in a shared location, you can certainly navigate to that shared location and open it without actually opening up Excel. I mean, without opening GP.
All right. If there are no additional questions here, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's presentation. And thank you, Rigo, so much for giving us a great insight on Microsoft Dynamics GP.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.